Hey, everybody, welcome back to the JKWD podcast. And we want to wish y'all, if you have served or are serving, a happy Veterans Day. Kelvin, thank you for your service, sir. 20 years in the U.S. Air Force.
It was indeed. And you're welcome.
And you know, November 11th is one of those holidays that is commemorated throughout the world, throughout much of the world. It started here as Armistice Day,
Mm-hmm.
and it is also Armistice Day throughout much of Europe currently. And then it's also one of the few holidays that we celebrate on the day.
Yeah.
It didn't fall under the it did for a few years fall under the resolution of, what do they call it, the Uniform Holidays Law.
Whatever that is. Celebrate everything on Monday, yeah.
Yeah. So it did for a few years, and then they moved it back to November 11th because it's actually commemorating a specific event, as opposed to the concept.
It's a general holiday, yeah.
They made President's Day and Monday celebrating the birthdays of Washington and Lincoln, and they made Martin Luther King Day a Monday somewhere around Martin Luther King's birthday, and they made Columbus Day a Monday, and they made Labor Day a Monday, and they made Labor Day a Monday in September instead of around May 1st. And then they made even Memorial Day is a Monday. But not Veterans Day. Veterans Day happens on the 11th, which this year happens to be a Monday, but next year it will not be. So,
well, we get both the best. No, that's not right. Best of both worlds this time.
both the best worlds.
Yeah. Well, it is good. I didn't realize that it was a international date. I guess I'm a little lax on some of my studies.
Well, the end of World War II was, in fact, an international event, so it does make some sense.
It was that. So, how's things in your world?
Things here are pretty good. We do some time traveling with the podcast. Is we're recording this on November 1st, and the weather here in Savannah recognized the change of the calendar. It was 85 degrees yesterday, and it was 47 degrees this morning when I left the gym, and we're looking in the high in the low 60s today. So it's like, oh, hey, by the way, fall. Hey, I'm here. It's fall now.
It's about time you got some of that weather.
Right. But it is beautiful out. A little cooler than I expected. Yeah, I know that 47 is going to be cold. So I was bundled up this morning, but went out for a walk after the sun came up with the baby and had to come back in and put more clothes on her.
Yeah, well, here in sunny New York, it wasn't so sunny yesterday, actually. Again, with the time travel, because yesterday was Halloween, October 31st, and it rained all day. And
I think a lot of the Northeast got that too. At least I know they were expecting it.
When the kids came through that night, well, I wasn't involved in that because I was in my Toastmasters meeting. However, it just didn't look like a pleasant time for people. But I remember years past when we first moved out this way that, it was just as likely to be snowing on Halloween as it was anything else. And I affectionately recall some of those days where I said it was snaining, which was a little snow, a little rain mixed. But yesterday it was just wet.
Man, that's an affectionate memory of the word, but that's stuff
because
not driving in it.
Not driving in it and not handing out candy in it, and it's nasty stuff. So, however, I keep reminding myself I moved to this place on purpose.
You did.
I will admit there was a woman involved at the time. We had been married, and she moved here, and we came out together. However, actually, there was a day when I thought Syracuse was a big city. And then I went to Sacramento, LA, San Bernardino, San Diego. It wasn't as big and bad as I thought it was.
Syracuse is a nice sized city. Yeah, it's a size city that's in my wheelhouse. Actually, every metro area that I've lived in my life has been a metro area with the city that starts with the letter S and is about the same size.
Oh,
I grew up and
good to know.
Grew up and lived in the greater Springfield, Massachusetts area, and then moved to Syracuse, New York area. Now I'm in Savannah, Georgia. So Springfield, Syracuse, Savannah.
You may as well write an S on your chest there.
They're all oddly it's the first letter of my last name as well.
Oh, see?
So I guess if we're
attraction at its finest.
I guess if we're moving again, then we got to look at Santa Fe or Sacramento or San Francisco, or probably not Saskatchewan. That's a little far north.
It is, and I'm not sure it's got the weather you're looking for.
No, that's what I'm thinking.
Huh?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Plus, with a name like Saskatchewan, I mean, aren't they going to have Bigfoot in it where he's come from? Who knows? Whatever that is.
You know what they say about guys with big feet?
That's right.
Big shoes.
Got big shoes. Yeah. So,
but cooler weather.
Good
time for soup.
Is it? It is.
Time for soup and kettle and fire. It's got you covered on the soup, and you want to make your own soup. They got you covered on some broth. And our friends at Kettle and Fire want to give you, the listeners of this podcast, 10% off your order. So you go to kettleandfire.com, put Better Humanhood, all one word, in the promo code box at checkout. Take 10% off your order. That's kettleandfire.com, kettleandfire.com. Use code BetterHumanhood at checkout for 10% off.
Wow. That's a deal.
It's a deal. Steal. It's a sale of the century.
And it's good for you.
Enjoy the music. Josh and Kelvin World Domination Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go. Magical transitions.
Hey, Mr. Shear. Oh man, it's been an interesting week. How's it been for you?
It's every week's interesting over here.
Well, there is that,
yeah. Every week you got to figure out what's wrong this week, because there's always something wrong. And really, it's not about what's wrong; it's about what's changing. because we get used to life one way, and then something changes, and we have to adapt to the new way. And when you're 10 months old, those changes come very quickly.
They do.
A lot of things seem like they've been there forever, even though they've been there for like 2 days.
That's a long time for a 10-month-old.
It is. It is. So every week is still a large percentage of her life, and so this week she had her first low grade fever, and I know that that's common in babies. Like normally we'll start getting them at a couple months old, and they'll have one every 6 weeks or so whenever something changes on their body. But I think we've got some back teeth coming in, and that's a big step. And you can hear now that she's complaining, even though the fever finally broke this morning after a couple of days. But we can't seem to come to an understanding of how to cure her ills. As you can hear, I'm sure. I'm sure the microphone's picking that up, but she'll get words soon enough, and she'll use those to complain.
Well, depending on which one she learned from you, it could be an interesting day.
Well, I've always said that as long as she uses her words correctly, we're good.
I understand. I want to be around for that first conversation with her kindergarten teacher. When you ask that question. Yeah.
Mr. Scheer, your kid said XYZ. Is a kid being an XYZ? Well, yes. Well, then my kid's not the issue.
There you go. Waiting for those days.
Yeah, so how things your way? How's the week been for you?
Well, I've had a lot of stuff going on this past couple of weeks, so I find I'm involved in many things, and sometimes I don't actually realize how much I'm involved in until they all get active in the same time period.
Right.
And it's been kind of hectic. However, I've handled most of it. There've been places where I got a little extra sleep, drank a little extra coffee, a little extra water. No bone broth this week, but some good teas, and I'm back on my green smoothies, because
Oh yeah.
I go buy all this baby green spinach, and then I have to remember to actually use it.
Yeah, and then you got to use it fairly quick because
it turns
just
funny.
a mush pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear I'm not supposed to use it when that happens. I actually looked that up. Is it ugly? Is it just ugly and smells funny, or is it dangerous? Yeah, it's dangerous actually, depending on how funny it smells. So I just got to eat more quicker.
Yeah, but, I've found out that are you using like a blender or something like that?
NutriBullet.
Yeah, so I found out that if you freeze it, that it
I hadn't tried freezing.
It'll last. So you kind of gotta break it up into the size servings you're gonna use. I had I was on. I'm back down to just the protein right now. But for a week, I was on more of a high calorie smoothie. but I froze the portions.
Uh-huh.
I would cut up an apple and a banana and a beet and throw a handful of baby spinach in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd have some peanut butter and some protein powder to add to it. But I found that freezing the stuff made it blend really well.
Awesome.
Oh, I threw some berries in there too, some blueberries and some strawberries. Yeah.
I mean, I got some dried cranberries I like throwing in mine with this protein powder that I use. Good stuff. It's good stuff.
The silence you hear right now is
I like that.
what sort of animal is that? Is that a badger?
That's a rodent. It's I think it's a
Yeah,
gopher with a
it's a rodent of some sort.
with Ray Charles glasses on it.
Yeah,
Like that little card that who was it brought out that little with the little gophers or something in it. I forget what it was. One of those. It may be a chipmunk. You never know, but it's cute. We have to do a screen print. But Marlena seems to like it. Hello. Or it's just a goofy guy playing with it. It could be different.
yeah, it could be.
Haven't seen that pet before. She's good, kids. She likes Uncle Kelvin.
Yeah. So I was reading. I'm reading this book called Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, who also wrote *Sapiens*.
You know, I'm very often impressed at how you can actually say the names of the authors that you read, because my mouth just goes into convulsions thinking about trying to form those sounds.
Well, I feel it's I feel like it's important to people that you get their name right when you can, and I'm sure you feel that a lot because and you've heard it. Our listeners have heard it a few times. People call you Kevin all the time.
All the time, yeah. Hi, Kevin. Now sometimes they're Texans and they just don't say L's, but you know, but those other ones, yeah.
Yeah, but usually they're not. Usually they've just never seen the word Kelvin and assume it was a typo. But one of the things he talks about early in the book. Yeah, I'm still kind of early in the book, but he discusses our current attempts to defeat death and
defeat death.
Yeah, we get a lot of stuff that that talks about. Well, we get a lot of stuff that deals with longevity, trying to make us live longer. And, we talked a little bit about on the podcast last week about telomeres and that kind of thing, and extending life by messing with telomere growth. One thing he points out is that throughout our history, malaria has killed most of the people who have ever died. And the Gates Foundation is working on wiping out malaria, so that stops becoming a threat. But throughout most of the history of humanity, war kills about 15% of people every year. But only recently, in the last few years, it's killing more like 5% of people who are dying. Which leads me to think that the reasons for war must be lessening, must be decreasing. I'm sure that our weapons are not getting less deadly.
Probably not.
So
more precise, perhaps, but
but we've got less of the world is at war than it typically is, and I think one of the reasons for that is that we have so many more resources available to us that we can all go get what we want without having to kill each other for it.
Well, all being a big word there.
Yeah. Such a big word for being such a small word, right?
Yeah.
But there are countries in the world that are, ravaged by civil wars because people hoard the resources. But even the people who don't have in those nations, there are nations with the resources that, if they wanted to, could share those resources. So yeah, there's never going to be enough spread widely enough.
Right.
But the fact that the instances of death due to war are decreasing so much, I think, is a big old reason for optimism in the way we see the world.
Well, I like the idea of being optimistic towards that. I'd kind of like the idea of having less war, but I suppose that's not entirely in the control of one person or even one set of persons.
Right.
And then, I look at how much the U.S. is involved in, but there's a whole lot of other people involved in stuff too, even aside from us, when we're not.
Right. But I mean, even those places where we are involved in war or threatening war, we're involved in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria right now. Mm-hmm. But we're not involved in France and Germany and England and Russia. And, we might be threatening in North Korea, and occasionally we threaten, we make light threats against Russia, but nothing really serious. We know that that's just nuclear war, and that's the end of us. But but I think by and large, we're in fewer wars than we have been.
I think she likes my gerbil.
I think so too. Y'all can hear I am sure she is not responding to the conversation at hand.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do a screen print of this. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but anyhow, yeah. So what's next,
Well, we you're saying that less war is not in the hands of we few. However, optimism is. And I think that's where we can focus. I mean, especially right now. I know that the algorithms on social media are designed to get us more enraged. Mm-hmm. I fell into that trap just this week, actually.
Did you?
Somebody posted a memo that I think they misinterpreted, but but really I wound up in another, like, just vaccinate your kids, stupid people, argument. And if you don't, keep them away from those. You keep them away from old people and public schools and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But social media is designed to get us angry. That's how we get more views. That's how the companies get more views and more interactions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we seem to like arguing more than we like finding reasons to get along. And I think that if we can swing that the opposite direction toward optimism and civility and nuance, then it doesn't even have to be toward agreement. Mm-hmm. Because I like to think that it's a lot of coughing for a little girl. I like to think that we I like to think that we get a lot of that, even though there are a couple of different groups in the US
Mm-hmm.
who disagree on a lot of things, that each of them are, each group is attempting to move the country forward in what they believe is the right direction.
Okay.
So, you know, we want good things for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We just disagree on how to get it done.
Or in some cases, what that good thing is.
Right. So, yeah, I think that if we can bring about more optimism,
Mm-hmm.
that's the best thing we can instill in people's minds, and the best way we can affect things on a small scale.
So we need to start an active campaign for what's right in the world.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot right, and I think there are a lot of people who see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler wrote a book called Abundance,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got another book coming out in the next year or two. I know they're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like there's so much available to everybody, be it information, other resources. You know, more of the world is getting clean water. Interestingly, we're getting less of it in the U.S., but that's another discussion.
That's a whole other discussion, right?
Yeah.
I think we were spoiled way too long for something had to give, right?
That's right. But yeah, and you know, once you solve those kind of bottom of the food chain problems,
Mm-hmm.
like having to walk 20 miles a day to get clean water,
Mm-hmm.
you get to start solving some of the world's other problems. You know, some of the bigger problems. So I think we're headed in the right direction there.
I believe you're right.
Here are words that I don't say very often, but
What's
are
that?
your socks delicious?
You know, she's found something to be happy about. So I must prefer, oh, she's having a good old time now.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, she
She
was
was.
folks. So you guys just missed it. Sorry. Yeah. So I don't know. So what is the most optimistic thing you see about our upcoming worldness?
Well, I think the abundance of not only resources but of the ability to connect and the ability to automate.
Mm-hmm.
Can I help you, little one? Are among them. Maybe someday the ability to read the minds of children who can't speak yet. That'll help. But but abundant resources, and particularly the ability to do things at scale. With, you know, we've talked, I think, more than once about, you know, tree pullers and train, and you know, making, you know, the machines that make train tracks, and
All right. Yeah.
you know,
They don't need
things
people.
that right. And some people will see that as a degradation in the workforce. And I think it gives people an opportunity to go bigger. Some people don't like self checkouts. I think they're great. Right now they're not really equipped to handle a full grocery load, but they will be soon. And people can stop working $7.50 jobs that aren't fulfilling, and we can, if they, if there's not, we're going to obviously need a new economic model for that, but
yeah,
if we can pay them to what would otherwise be volunteering at a hospice or at a nursing home or in schools, and still get that wage somehow, then I think we wind up with a much better society and people helping people instead of corporations. People helping people directly.
Okay.
Rather than people helping
people. Oh.
Rather than people helping corporations.
Got it.
So rather than helping put money in the pockets of companies, helping people one-on-one. Emotional connection is important too, and we're more and more isolated by our machines, and you walk into restaurants and see people texting each other like from the same table. It's kind of
now. I mean, that's got its advantages. I don't know that I've seen that, although I have texted someone across the room from me just for the heck of it, hi, you're cute, whatever, something like that. Not to ask like a question. I don't think. But yeah, the social media thing. We always talk about that. But here's the other side of the social media argument about people talking to each other simultaneously. While it's kind of insulated some in that way, when I first got started with it, like Twitter was wonderful. I developed, Facebook was more of a local thing, but Twitter.
Well, Facebook was only available in schools when it started, and you and I were beyond that age that we could get it.
Yeah. But when it got bigger, I mean.
But but when we were on Twitter, you and I started on Twitter about the same time, and we found that big old community that we got together in Syria.
Yeah, and we had a great community. I was
largely met on.
I had started to. Was working with a group of people, and I had actually started a website called Twitter Synergy or Twinergy, because we were going to be talking about, the relationships that I had made, the connections I had made, the conversations that had started over Twitter, and this whole Twitter, the synergy of Twitter thing was awesome. And then I found out, of course, that HP was using that name at some point, which upset me because I had it first. But anyway, I wasn't public enough. But then I developed a lot of relationships around the world, and actually imported those people to the Facebook community when I hit that. So to get that. So although social media has been morphed into this,
right, the potential of social media, the potential of social media is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that there was it Syria? That they had a revolution that that entirely was organized over Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, governments don't like that.
In 2008, 2009. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I mean, governments find a way to shut that stuff down.
Eventually.
Well,
I mean, now they know they have to. Right, but they didn't then.
Right. So, but I've got some incredible friendships of people that I've known and have fairly close relationships with that I actually haven't met, haven't been to that country.
Right.
So I used to
Well,
love Twitter, and I pain at what it developed into. But by the same
right. Well,
token,
the
I'm not
officiant
using
at
it like I did before either.
right, the officiant at our wedding I met on Twitter. The DJ I met on Twitter, and we put together groups of we had a bunch of tweet ups early in those early
Yeah, we
days,
did.
2007, 2008, 2009. But
Yep.
right, it's turned into something else. So the potential for social media to do something great is there. It just currently is not.
We just got to figure out how to retrofit back to what we want. It's going to be a lot more compartmentalized, I think.
Well, I mean, I
And
think some of the reason it did that though is because social media companies are companies, and they need to make money.
that's correct.
And some of the way they make money is with attention.
Oh yeah, I used to hear
You're
people
going to spend more time on it by
oh yeah,
getting angry than it behooves them to make you angry.
yeah. That doesn't work as well for me.
Right.
But I get off of that. But
right. So they've scared you away
to a
to some
degree.
extent.
I'm just not as
right. You're not as active
as I would be, right?
Very few of us are interactive on Twitter anymore.
And I used to miss that. I miss that now because I had some incredible friendships on there, and we had community. We weren't just complaining about stuff. We were getting stuff done. We were meeting people. I got a couple people as a matter of fact, last month I met a friend of mine in New York City who I had known for 10 years via Twitter, but we'd never met in person, right? And we finally got to meet last month because they were close enough for us to connect. And it's like really cool. You meet somebody's like, wow, I've known you forever, but I just saw you in person just this one time. And,
right.
And a couple of us like that. So it's been good. I've got some other friends that I've let go by the wayside, and I say I let go because I have just as much interest in keeping the connection going as others that I'd like to go back to because it was some really good relationships and some really good stuff happening. So I still think the potential's there if we can resist the urge to get into the fights. And I think one of those things, and I don't know if this morphed off into a place other than where we were heading initially, is I think the secret to this is becoming more of a community in the pack. So we have things like Mighty Networks, right?
Right.
And Facebook is good, but it's limited. Mighty Networks is, you pay for it.
Right. Well,
so you can create a real community that is the community you want. So you still got the benefits of social media and interaction and worldwide connection without, since it's funded differently, you don't have to worry about the same problems. And
right. But on the other hand, there's less opportunity for discovery, which is really what we were using Twitter for back in the day, right?
Well, we can still discover and move, what do you call it? Tap and roll. Hey, you're cool. Let's move you over to here once we make sure that they've got good sense, right?
Right. But you've got to use the discovery in one of our more, traditional
public,
yeah,
less controlled things, and then make that connection and move. But that's okay. That's what we do with friends anyway, right? I mean, I met you at a party at Jill's house, and then we got together in person.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that could have gone either way. I was weird back then. You accepted me anyhow.
And then you decided that having lunch with me every other week was a good idea, or every week.
Yeah, yeah, and there were no drugs, and there were no drugs involved. Really, that was something.
Well, there was usually one drug involved. It was either caffeine. It was either caffeine or alcohol.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah, there was that. So,
anyway,
so we still have that. We still have that tap and roll ability.
Right.
if we use it correctly. So we can still put together the coalitions, as it were, or the groups or the packs to do whatever the good thing is we want to do. And since we're not relying on the generosity, of, say, the Facebook owners of the world
Right.
to connect us, we can be free of that particular influential disease of negativity, and we can control our groups. So I think that's maybe someplace we should head more deliberately.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you and I know enough people. The people we connect with.
Well,
you and I know enough to put a tremendous network together. Again, you got to worry about common connection, common purpose, but that's what stuff's made of, and then we can do that.
Right. And we have those tools in ways that we didn't before.
Right. Absolutely.
It used to be that if you wanted to start a movement, you had to travel from town to town and village to village and spread that movement. And you had to eventually we got telephones, and once you had your movement organizer in Chicago, and your movement organizer in Los Angeles, and your movement organizer in Detroit, and your movement organizer in Houston, that you could call them. You didn't have to ride out to them, or
right,
send a postcard, which took 2 weeks to get there by horse.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now it's almost a challenge to make even a very large movement heard, because we can organize a very large network, but if we want that message to grow beyond
just a little group, yes,
network, even if the network's huge, we got to get off our mediated platforms and out into the real world. So there could be 10 million of us all talking about the same thing, all getting along and all wanting to move the world forward. But unless we get out there and actually do it, we're just a Facebook group, or we're just a Mighty Network conversation, or we're just a Zoom chat.
Is it.
But again, it's another reason to be optimistic is that we've got these tools that allow us to connect, and allow us to connect in close enough to real time that we call it real time. I mean, you and I have these conversations here, via a platform called Zoom, and there must be some delay on it because it takes light and sound time to travel.
But
but it's so negligible that we have a conversation.
In real time.
It's not like I'm mailing you a sentence and waiting for you to mail me a reply.
Correct. So that's good. So I guess we just got to figure out what movement we want to put together, eh?
That's right.
Oh yes, we have one.
We do.
We have intensely positive and better humanhood.
That's right.
What a better synergistic connection than that. I mean, ask the audience, is there a better thing than being intensely positive and having better humanhood? I mean, is there a better use of planet resources than that?
I can't think of one.
So,
reasons to be optimistic.
Time to start them. Yes, reasons to be optimistic. If some of the audience would pop in and go, yeah, here's an idea we think you might want to take for your show, because they can leave us suggestions.
Yeah, jkwdpodcast.com. Leave us some comments. Leave us some ratings and reviews right in iTunes or Spotify or Spreaker or wherever you're listening to this. And well, you're probably not listening to it in Spreaker because we moved from there. But wherever you're listening to the podcast, you can leave us comments or ratings and reviews. And also, if you want to support the podcast, go to kettleandfire.com. Get your fall ingredients. Get your soup. Get your bone broth for 10% off with code BetterHumanhood at checkout. And we've got a bunch of sites if you want to go check them out. There's JKWD podcast, of course, but there's also intenselypositive.com and betterhumanhood.com and vitaminkdaily.com and joshshear.com and all these places to connect with us. So go forth and find us, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Bye. A Better Humanhood production.